Come on in, sit back and relax. You're listening to episode 224 of the WealthTech Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, founder of Ezra Group Consulting, and this podcast features interviews, news, and analysis on the trends and best practices all around wealth management technology. My guest for this episode is Colin Falls, founder and CEO of GeoWealth. Now, Colin has been at GeoWealth for over 11 years. Before that, he was at a Midwestern RIA for 2 years. And before that, and right after graduating from Notre Dame, he played professional basketball in Europe for about a year and a half in Czechoslovakia and Italy. Got to give him credit for that. It wasn't the NBA, but still, you're playing pro ball somewhere, you're playing pro ball. Got to give him credit. Shocked he changed careers. Why would you leave basketball for the RIA wealth management business? I don't know, but we're happy he did. Otherwise, we wouldn't have GeoWealth around. So we covered a lot of ground in this episode. We talked about their recent press release. I'm not going to spill the beans. You'll hear it from him. We talked about their support for unified managed accounts and how they built their technology from scratch there. We talked about alternative investment support, and we talked about new account opening. Lots of good stuff. But before we get started, let's talk about tech stacks. Now, at Ezra Group, we've seen tech stacks of hundreds of RIAs. And let me tell you, most of them are loaded down with tech debt. So you shouldn't feel too bad about yours. But let's face it, tech debt is like a giant anchor holding back your business growth. If you want to free your firm for exponential growth, you should run, not walk, to our website, ezragroup.com, and fill out the Contact Us form. Our experienced team can evaluate your current tech ecosystem, deliver targeted recommendations, optimize your existing systems and operations, or run an RFP and help you implement new software to take your firm to the next level. You can take advantage of our free consultation offer by going to ezragroup.com. Housekeeping items that we always do before the interview. Please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. Check out investinothers.org. That's the Invest in Others Charitable Foundation. They do a lot of good work in our industry, raising money to donate to charities that are either run by or helped by financial advisors. And I'm excited to introduce our next guest. It is founder and CEO of GeoWealth, Colin Falls. Colin, welcome to the program.
Hey, Craig. It's great to be with you. I've been looking forward to being on for a while now. I'm glad we're able to make this happen.
You know, Colin, we're all busy. I'm glad you can make time for us. We got you in our schedule here in the new year. Still in the new year. We're still cranking here. There's a lot going on. And are you calling in from, looks like your Chicago office?
I am calling in from our Chicago headquarters. We have about a little over 100 people now across the company. Headquarters are in Chicago, where we have the majority of the management and the operations and servicing, and then we have an engineering hub over in Europe, and then a number of people scattered across the country, which is just kind of the new normal with the virtual work world.
I hear you, man. Well, I mean, Ezra Group Consulting, we've always been virtual. We were a no office company when we started 19 years ago, so we were a bit ahead of the curve. So I completely understand that.
Well, I joke. We're kind of the same. So when we launched in 2010, we were actually integrated with another RIA. It was a subsidiary of ours, and so I was in Kansas City, and we had no real, we had the office in Europe, and Sofia, Bulgaria was our engineering hub, and we had just a few people. So we had a CTO, we had a CIO, we had a head of operations, and everyone was virtual. So we literally had no headquarters or roots, and we realized before we go to market, we had to, invest in a headquarters, a home office. I was from Chicago. Certainly, there's a lot of talent in the area, and so we kind of did it in reverse. So we were a virtual company, realized we needed, a more solid foundation, and so that was us moving to Chicago in 2013.
Yeah, and you and I met, according to my notes, in 2017, and that's when I got my first demo of the platform. And it was pretty early. I mean, but I could tell that you had a lot going on, and you're pretty ambitious in your goals. I mean, I was a little dubious, I have to say, because it's hard to build out all of this stuff, as you know. But before we get into that, Can you give us, before jumping, give us a 30-second elevator pitch for GeoWealth?
Absolutely. So GeoWealth is the modern TAMP for RAs. And so when we think about TAMPs, there's three core components. There's technology, there's the investment portfolio or portfolio solutions, and there's these services. And all three TAMPs have all of those. I think all kind of focus in different areas. Our core competencies in the technology layer. So all of our technology is proprietary. We're exclusively focused on RAs. We really can serve at this point RAs from emerging startup RAs all the way up to 5, 6 billion, up to $10 billion RAs. And we want to, really be the bridge between the traditional software as a service provider and the traditional TAMP and bring the best of those capabilities in one place.
That was a concise and well thought out answer, Colin. I appreciate that.
Well, I wanted to answer I wanted to start getting into the why we built it before you asked that one and how we did it, because I remember our conversation back in 2017, and it's interesting. At that time, we'd gone very wide, but we hadn't, we were focusing on rounding out a lot of the capabilities, and we needed to build a new UI. So I'm happy to kind of dig into there wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of software reviews. That's something we're really big on. We do a lot of competitive analysis research here. So when I first met you, I still have my notes showing I was going through your rebalancer. Do you do this? You're like, well, no, yes to this, no. I'm like, you guys are so far behind. But then that's what it takes when you're starting out and you're building out this wide breadth of capabilities. It just takes years to build it because it's not an easy lift. But you've done it pretty well so far. You want to do a quick overview of that?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think that's why there's not a lot of new entrants. Like if you look around portfolio accounting and specifically sub-accounting systems in the space, there haven't been a lot of new entrants in the last 5 to 7 years. And the reason is it's hard and it creates a higher barrier to entry. And so we actually started building the technology around 2008, 2009, and we invested in the foundation first. So think sub-accounting, building up to accounting, and then incrementally built out all the capabilities, whether it was reporting or billing or trading systems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as you know, it's more challenging to do that in a UMA structure than just your typical accounting structure. And so a lot of like the advisor facing features were really built more in like the last 6 or 7 years, where the first 6 and 7 years were based on the foundation and the plumbing. So I think when we talked really at that inflection point when we were going to market, we had a lot of the foundation built, but building out, additional features on our rebalancing or our OMS or our proposal still needed work. And so, I view it as a real competitive advantage for us that we have built it all from the ground. We understand, every element of how the technology works and functionally, even the operations side. When I started in 2010, I was literally doing the reconciliation, I was doing the billing, reporting, and trading. So understanding at our level, and Jack Hanna, who's the president as well, how the sausage is made, I think it really helps inform how to build the product.
It definitely does. Yeah, I mean, we've built portfolio accounting engines, the specifications for portfolio accounting engines. And when people see the spec fee, right, they can't believe how big it is, right? You don't realize what goes on behind the scenes in portfolio accounting. That's why when people tell me, "Oh, we got a new," like I got a call from a journalist from the Financial Times last week saying, "There's an RIA that just is going to build their own portfolio management system. What do you think of that?" I said, "Sounds like a stupid idea." I'm like, "Well, what? What do you mean? Why?"
Yeah.
Because there's so many of them out there. It's so hard to do, and it's not your core competency. But for you guys, you built it. You decided it was going to be your core competency.
Yeah, and we were fortunate. We're backed by a family office, so we had patient capital. I think oftentimes, whether it's private equity or venture, I think depending on what stage or, how you get into it, we always had the vision that there was going to be an extended R&D period to deliver, to build the breadth of the solution we wanted. And I think like anytime I hear a new portfolio accounting entrant or even like sub-accounting entrant into the market, you're skeptical just because you know how hard it is. And are they doing transaction-based accounting? And so there's nuances on all this. And as you know, there's so much noise in our space. It's the hardest thing to do is matrix out the capabilities based on providers because everyone represents that they have everything. And then oftentimes you look under the hood and realize, oh wait, they're using this provider or they're using this provider. And so you got to cut through that. But I also think as this has evolved, as the tech side of this, and you know this better than me, has become more mature, there's been consolidation, and there's, I don't want to say a dozen firms, maybe 24 firms that stand out with portfolio accounting and TAMP capabilities. They're differentiated in their own, and I think there'll be more consolidation, and the best software companies are going to be the survivors here.
Exactly. Yeah. When you mentioned tax lot accounting, the transaction processing engine, feed handler, corporate actions, dividend reinvestments, we talk about fixed income, and people start their eyes start to glaze over. We got to do what? How do we build that reconciliation security master? Yeah. So I was definitely impressed that you guys got through all of that and built a stable platform. Because there is a lot of noise and there's so many out there. I mean, I wrote an article 5 years ago already, 6 years ago, called 50 portfolio management platforms can't all survive. And more keep coming out.
Yep.
And there's only so
Yep.
much market share. And you guys have done it an interesting way, at least that you're focused on a TAMP. You're not just selling software. You're a TAMP that's run by your own software platform. So it's a unique way of delivering it.
And I think that's played out to some extent, right? Like if you think about the RA market in 2010, it was $1 trillion. I don't know what it is today, $8 trillion, whatever it is. And it was very clear that what independent RAs were looking for was modern software and architecture. And I think coming out of 2010, again, when we were getting involved, everything was going from desktop to cloud, but those were still, more immature companies on the software side. Now, a lot of them have scaled up and they have trillions on the platform now. But we always viewed it as there was an opportunity to bridge what these software providers brought to the table, and frankly, robo-advisors helped us in terms of better UI, better workflows, and what an RA actually wants to do, right? And so there was a chasm between a pure software provider and what a TAMP was offering, right? And so if you think about when an RA launches, what they have to address technology and operations. They have to address investment solutions, and they have to invest financial planning. Most RAs did not get in the business to be in operations and technology. And I think that part of the challenge is, and there's a lot of great softwares out there, unless you're a scaled $5-10 billion plus firm, like the argument to do that yourself and use a software and operate it and invest in the operations and the redundancies, I think is challenged. And I think that the TAMPs that were in the market weren't giving enough flexibility on the investment side, that the RAs just wouldn't use TAMPs, right? So it was almost like a fork in the road of, are you an RA, you're going to outsource? You're going to use a software provider. If you're broker dealer, you're going to use a TAMP. And our view is always like, why don't we bring them together? Why don't you have self-service technology plus the outsourcing, the efficiencies and automation and scale that comes with outsourcing? And can you bring it together? And I do think that there's tailwinds behind it, right? You've seen TAMPs acquire software providers acquire TAMPs. I think when it's all said and done, most of them are going to be able to offer software and services with them.
That seems to be the way at least the big players are going. If you look at the InvestNets and the Orions that have merged their software platforms with their TAMPs, they are moving in that direction, offering more services, more of an end-to-end platform, including CRM, including financial planning, even insurance and others. So that's something you guys are running up against, but you seem to be growing at a nice clip. And that leads us into our next topic, which is your press release. You want to give the news here?
Yeah, happy to. So, we recently, at the end of the year, surpassed $28 billion on the platform. I think it's about 28.5 we ended the year with, across 180,000 accounts and a couple hundred RAs. And so, I think everybody going into 2022 had, ambitious growth expectations. And I think 22 is humbling for anyone that touched the wealth space. But I think at the same time, we were resilient in our client base, had very, very little turnover. We were able to grow. I think the challenge in 22 was less the market and more advisors being heads down with volatility and focusing on their clients, which they should. And the idea of making technological or operational changes was a non-starter. And so it was nice to see in 2023 advisors get past that, stabilize their clients, the psychology around that, and start thinking about growth and, partners in the future. And I think, we've just ridden that wave in terms of growth. And so, it's interesting, like there's, clear product market fit that we've established in the last few years, and we feel like things are coming at us now, in volumes that have never been there. So we expect the growth to continue, and are pretty excited about kind of this next chapter for the company.
Well, congratulations. That's a big milestone. Almost 30 billion. Not quite. Almost there.
Almost there. Almost there. I can't, the real-time numbers. Yes. And we have quite a large pipeline and new things coming on as well. But, I told you, Craig, as we were kind of joking before it, every day is a grind. You know that. Anyone in a startup business that's scaling a business feels that way. And every now and again, you got to pick your head up and say, okay, we're making progress. And so, if you look at it over a 1, 3, 5-year period, we've made a lot of progress, but I think we still have it in our DNA to grind every day and act like we haven't done much, and support our clients and like they're our first. And so I do think that that's helped us.
Colin, let's talk some tech. One of the things I like about your platform is you built out a support for unified managed accounts, UMAs. Not a lot of vendors of your size offer this. The big guys do, but not a lot of vendors your size do. Can you tell us why you built that and some of the new feature functionality around your UMA that you are coming out with?
Yeah, and so I think there's a couple things there. One, yes, there are vendors that have built it, and there's some big ones. I think that what we did right is that there's 2 ways to do UMA, right? You could build in a portfolio accounting system, and then after the fact, build sub-accounting and connect your OMS and rebalancer to it. That oftentimes is clunky, right? Because you're connecting kind of disparate systems. What we did, I think, correctly is we built the sub-accounting as like the underlying layer that built up to our accounting system. So there was never a scenario that we didn't have UMA or sub-accounting. I mean, UMA is just basically supporting sub-accounting to some extent, and then it's all the products that you put into it. And so we built that from day one. It's allowed us to be flexible in terms of, billing in a UMA structure, reporting in a UMA structure, investing. In the system, if there's any feedback we get sometimes is it's a little maybe too flexible in different cases. We're not rigid in that you have to go into a UMA program and it's like set. There's it's really building up from the sub-accounting structure. So you could have models of models, you could have UMA, you could have an assortment of just portfolios and carved out positions or cash on the sidelines. And so it's created tremendous flexibility for us. And I think that, the next wave of innovation on that are what are the product types, the new investment solutions that we could bring into that have traditionally been fund, 40 Act funds and individual securities. And so we're getting closer to launching where you could have direct indexing in a UMA, you could have fixed income in a UMA, structured notes, semi-liquid alts. And so we think that's where the world's going, is when we think about personalization. A lot of personalization is if we thought about like the direct indexing platforms, they're all built on traditionally single portfolio account structures. And we think that there need to be more flexibility in the future to get the benefit of personalization inside of UMA. So we think that's kind of the new frontier, and we're very focused on it.
I would love to see those things. That's a lot of interesting functionality, security types, program types inside of a UMA. Now, fixed income we have seen some other firms launch direct indexing. I mean, direct indexing is really just like an SMA. Like an SMA manager can run a direct index inside of a UMA, no problem. Is there something special you're doing with your direct indexing in a UMA that's going to be different than just if the SMA manager was running 500 stocks in his SMA?
The difference is that you're going to, so if you think about that, right, what does that require the advisor to do? It requires them to likely go dual contract directly with that sub-advisor. And I think that's the problem with direct indexing and really just SMAs in general in a world where everything's coming to integration and platforms. And so if you have to do everything to dual contract and go to your direct indexing provider, and that's a siloed part of your business that's not run on your operating platform, it's not the ideal experience. And so our view, there was an aha moment to some extent when we were working with the provider, and they were like, all right, so I have my direct indexing accounts in one account, I have my fixed income in another, and my funds and ETFs in another SMA.
Mm.
And every year when I rebalance, I have to journal positions across 2,000 accounts, and rebalancing that takes 2 to 3 weeks.
Mhm.
And so I think we're moving to a world where just in the way UMA's benefited, equity SMAs and funds and ETFs, it's going to have that same benefit across some of the newer investment solutions that have come to market.
We'd certainly like to see that. So what you're saying is there'd be some sort of direct indexing functionality on the GeoWealth side that would allow you to do the trading. So it'd be just one contract with you.
Not
As you could say, I want a direct index on the S&P 500. My client doesn't want to buy any military stocks, so take them out, and you would just handle that.
Yeah, not necessarily. So the manager would still, the DI platform would still trade that sleeve. So, and again, that's all being worked out. And again, I think we're not far from an announcement on where we're heading on this. But the idea would be that you'd have a UMA where we were trading some components of it, and there would be a manager trading different elements where it's more complicated.
Interesting. So that's the old school UMA was all direct manager trading, when back in the old days. And then UMA, the model-based UMA enabled that to go away and the sponsors to take control, where they're just getting now a spreadsheet from the managers, and then they're doing all the trading. And it's still difficult. There's some big firms who shall remain nameless, who still don't do a very good job of direct manager trading. They still have to rely on third-party technologies. So, how did you build that out on your end?
Well, it's not completely built, right? So if you think about it, the sub-accounting structure allows for it. And so for us, it's more operational workflows that are required because just think about anything traded on our platform is easily sleeved out.
Mhm.
Anything traded off our platform, if we understand where it's coming from, we could allocate it to sleeves.
Mhm.
And so yes, the way we're thinking about it is it all still comes through our chassis. It comes through our service center. So there's streamlined workflow in terms of how the orders are
Mhm.
generated, or not even generated, but requested. And then we are going to execute the things that are more standard and liquid. And then the manager would have the ability, we're not in the business of executing on the fixed income side, right? There's a lot of complexities on direct indexing that some of the large direct indexing providers are very good at. And so the idea is to use our chassis to support it all, but from an execution standpoint, only do where we think we're best suited, and then lean on third parties that we believe are specialized in the space, and they're different vertical.
That sounds like a good plan. If you don't have to do everything yourself, why would you, right? Bring in the experts. So I'm looking forward to seeing all those features inside of UMA on the GeoWealth platform at some point in the future. Moving on to
That's the plan.
other functionality. So you also recently acquired a TAMP. You acquired First Ascent. Congratulations on that as well. Scott and his team. It's a great acquisition for you guys. And regarding their tech, you are in the middle of onboarding new account opening process, taking what they've got, merging to what you have. Can you explain how that works and what the impetus behind that is?
Yeah, and just for a second, maybe I'll give you 30 seconds on the rationale, because I think it leads into what we're building. And so, we met Scott and his team, the years go by. We met them in the middle of 2022. And actually, the conversation around, they use a different software platform. They were doing it themselves and offering a TAMP. And they were actually looking at us as potentially replatforming.
Mm-hmm.
And very quickly, as part of that conversation, the way we came together is we were actually competing for a few prospects that were in the $30 to $50 million range. And what we realized is a lot of their capabilities were perfectly suited for the emerging RA, think $20 to $100 million. And the reason is they did more than us in terms of full service. They were more of a full service to TAMP, where they're doing the account cashiering and the custodial relationship. Meaning they also built, the only tech they actually built was an onboarder that was seamlessly like investment solutions. You get to pick your investment solutions, open accounts, all in one neat onboarder. And so that lent itself to their business model. And what attracted us is that we weren't as focused on that market. We'll call it the emerging advisor market. And we saw it as an opportunity to expand and offer more services. And so as part of it, we got a great team, a great client base. They really have a great client base. In addition, it opened up, more technological opportunity for us. So we have our own account opening capabilities. We have our own proposal. They have their onboarder, which has some of the same capabilities. And what we're doing is we're integrating that into ours, so it's in one ecosystem, and you get the best of both worlds from a real onboarding experience. Because remember, a lot of these full service clients that are co-advisory don't get to go to the custodian. They don't have access. They would only have access through GeoWealth, and so we have to make sure it's as seamless as possible in terms of how they interact with the custodians.
What is it you liked about the First Ascent onboarding new account opening tech that you made you want to replace your own?
I wouldn't say it's a replacement of our own. We're actually taking some of their capabilities and embedding it inside of ours. And honestly, it's just a lot of their new account workflow capabilities they're better than ours, frankly. Ours were built for enterprises to use, more like that's operated more like broker dealers. Theirs is built more for emerging RAs, and there's just capabilities inside there that will be easy to integrate in ours. So it's not like we're not taking their code, right? We're taking their concepts, and they have an engineer that works with them that's now part of our team, and accelerating and adding some of those capabilities to our own.
Oh, okay. So you're not moving the actual code base over. You're just saying, hey, that's a great idea. We're going to build that.
Yes, correct. Inside of our own. And we can do it very quickly. And again, ours is really solid, but this is just, there's nuances to it, which, I'd have to bring on the product side of the rationale of exactly what capabilities, but there's definitely expanded functionality that we didn't have.
Yeah. So that's really just taking their ideas and rebuilding it, saying, hey, we liked how you did your onboarding. We like the process.
Yep.
We're going to build that.
That's correct.
We're going to improve ours by building the way you built it. It's more like intellectual property.
It is. And the person that built it, right, is on our team now too. So that's it was one of those .NET Java that I don't know how this is going to work. They built it on .NET, we're on Java. So it just made sense to build in our system, right? It's just like, to take a fresh look at it, build it in our UI, UX, and that's the plan.
Well, coming from a comp sci major, former programmer, when I hear C# and or .NET and Java trying to work together, the back of my neck, the hairs go up.
Well, you have more experience than me, Craig. I act like I know what I'm talking about in technology. I've never written a line of code in my life, but I've gotten close enough. It's interesting. I think there's developers and engineers, and there's the business people, and I think that I know where to stay in my lane. So I try and give input based on the experiences we've had, but I'll get over my head very quickly on the technology side.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to know, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so you need to know the basics, and that's important. I mean, I've been around so long. I was there when C# was released, like in 2001 or something, like 2002. I don't know. That's when C# first came out. So that's when I was.
I was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, you see, but you still that stuff still works, and Java's even older, right? I mean, so it's the age, the age of a programming language doesn't relate to its viability and how whether you should use it or not, right? I mean, I think the Java was created by Sun Microsystems in the 90s, right? Like 94 or something. So it's even older than C#. I'm so old enough that I was using Java when it first came out. I was excited. Woo, Java. Look at this stuff. Anyway, we can reminisce all day. But got a couple more minutes. Let's talk about some of the other cool things you guys are doing. Alternatives, integrations with iCapital. We love talking about integrations. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that involves and how you did it?
Yeah, I think that it aligns with the theme of, historically we've served a more mass affluent end client base. And as we add capabilities to go upstream for high net worth and ultra high net worth investors, there's a different set of reporting requirements that come with that, right? And so we've overhauled our reporting engine and kind of our reporting suite in the last couple of years. And as part of it, again, with more fixed income accounts, we're going deeper on fixed income reporting and all the nuances there in fixed income. Likewise with alts, right? And so there's two parts to the alts, right? There's building the report, which is actually kind of the easier part, where you're having things like committed capital and MOIC, like that are just very alternative driven in terms of metrics and reporting. The harder part's actually the data connectivity. And so, we've recently integrated with iCapital, who's the kind of the leader in the space in terms of access. And so our view is to complement what we're doing in terms of capabilities we're building for the upstream end client. We have to improve or expand our capabilities on the reporting side to align with what their expectations will be when using those services.
It's something we're seeing more and more firms doing, and then the alt space is exploding with new vendors. I mean, iCapital is one of the leaders. There's a lot of other players, vying
Sure.
for them.
Yep.
Like Ace is also up there, and every
Yep.
large vendor's got some connectivity to alts, and there's lots of smaller ones coming out. So, when you did the data connectivity, was that difficult to do? What was involved in that?
It was relatively straightforward. Not much different. Like, in the way I view it is just like we're going to support every RA custodian, we're going to need to support the alt platforms, and we really just treat them as a custodian from a data vendor standpoint. So similar to that, I would say the differences are there's like uniqueness in terms of the fields they send you because of the alt specific reporting. But it was a similar process. So we feel like we can expand with the industry in terms of where client assets are to make sure that everything's in one place or is all aggregated in one place.
That's what happens when you're playing with the big boys, Colin. You got to start getting into all these other esoteric stuff, right?
Yeah, it is. And that, Craig, this is the hardest part of the job, right? Is like, okay, we've gone wide.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep going deep in all these functional areas. What are the things on the fringes you're willing to expand to? Like, we're not going to do financial planning, right? We're not going to do CRM. Like, it's going to be, the portfolio management system and everything that comes along with that. And so we need to be focused on that. And then, as we grow, we've been able to expand resources too, right? So, we have, I think, north of 40 engineers now, close to 50, with our product team, we have 50 people dedicated to the product. We're, planning to continue to expand that. So we're in a different stage than having, 7 or 8 engineers like last time we talked to you in 2017 or the first time we talked to you. So
the first time, yeah.
we're able to tackle more, but then there's more maintenance and everything. So how it goes on a software company, but I feel like we're positioned and we have the right people to execute against it.
Colin, that's awesome. And we are now out of time. Can you please tell listeners where they can find more information out about GeoWealth?
Absolutely. So GeoWealth.com is the best place, and there's interactive things on the website where you could request a demo or introductions, and we're all over it. So we'll be right on top of it. Feel free to visit our website or call our our home landline number at 312-219-9160. We love RAs, so feel free to give us a call or look us up on our website.
Excellent. Colin, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Craig. Always a pleasure. I'm looking forward to coming back at some point. Talk about all the things we just discussed.
Hey, it's Craig again. Here are my top 3 takeaways from this episode. So, as you heard, GeoWealth recently surpassed $28 billion in AUM across 180,000 accounts and 200 RIA clients. Number 2, Unified Managed Accounts. They built their UMA capabilities, technology from the ground up, which is not easy to do. It's not trivial, focusing on flexibility. And they're looking to add more investment types like direct indexing and alternatives inside a UMA sleeve. They recently acquired First Ascent TAMP, and they liked their onboarding concepts so much that they're building similar capabilities into their own new account opening technology. And here's a 4th takeaway, a bonus. They've integrated with iCapital for alternative investment data. And that's it. You've reached the end of another episode of the WealthTech Today podcast. Thanks for listening. But before you go, please head over to our website, EzraGroup.com. Scroll to the bottom of the homepage and sign up for our newsletter. Once a month, you'll receive an email chock full of wealth management goodness, news, updates, information. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again for listening, and talk to you all again next time.